is they are throwing mud at the wall. You got various tiers of cyber criminals, and the easiest way to break it down is there's a few really broad groupings. You got script kiddies, bored teenagers, bored people running automated packages trying to do stuff. No real skill involved. Then you've got unstructured cybercrime. They are the ones that are primarily targeting small business. They will lease servers, buy servers, do whatever they need to do, buy an exploit, package an exploit, like an attack on the system, and fire it out against hundreds of thousands of IP addresses. And your IP address is what your network is on to let you talk to the internet, to get your email, to go to the website, stuff like that.
Welcome to the Tech Savvy Recruiter, the podcast for recruitment and staffing agency owners keen to explore the tech innovations reshaping our industry. I'm Andrew Roger from RecMate.
And I'm Belinda Kerr from Recruitment Garage, and together we're your hosts, bringing you a stellar lineup of recruitment tech and AI experts ready to help you understand and, more importantly, benefit from the increasing array of tech available to you today. Delighted to have Luke Irwin from Aegis Security join us today. Luke is a fractional Chief Information Security Officer at Aegis, and he most recently made an appearance. I saw him on Sky News. He's been on Channel 7, 2SM, and various other media outlets that have been clamoring to hear what he has to say. So he's obviously been interviewed extensively about the cyber threats. And cyber threats, they're very real. And whilst we hear about the big ones in the news, small businesses are also being really heavily targeted, in fact, increasingly so by these bad actors. So Luke is here to tell us how to keep our businesses safe. And I was privy to a presentation that Luke did recently for us in the Recruitment Garage, and it was phenomenal. I learned so much. So I'm really excited to be able to share that with you and to help you guys keep your businesses safe from the increasing threats that we are undertaking from the cyber world. So welcome, Luke. Is there anything else you'd like to add to that before we kick off?
There's heaps of stuff. Like, I love what I do. It's one of the fields that this is almost 25 years now in this sort of space, in the tech industry and cyber industry. And it's one of the spaces where if you don't like learning, it's not the place for you. You've got to be constantly learning and constantly updating and changing your knowledge and keeping current. And for a lot of people, I completely understand that sounds absolutely horrible. But if you don't deal well with downtime, like I do, then it is amazing. You have to love reading, and you get to actually improve businesses and help them protect and maintain what people have built, because it matters to them, and you get to help them, and you get to prevent bad things happening to good people.
The things I really noticed about you in the last presentation is how passionate you are, as well as how knowledgeable. So both of those things come through. So I can't wait to unpack. So where shall we start? It'd be good to just, get an overview of the landscape, what's happening, what should we be thinking about?
Okay. So right now, the small businesses in Australia account for more than 97% of the total employer base in the country. Now, noting that in Australia, a small and medium business is 20 seats. Now, that's not exactly large, but when you compare it to America, they classify a small business as anyone under 100 seats. Now, in Australia, you've now crossed into the mid-market when you're playing with 100 staff. The challenge that exists for a lot of organizations is that they think that, we're too small to be a target. We have nothing of value. Why would they attack us? We're not important. We're invisible. It doesn't work that way. The best way to explain the analogy is they are throwing mud at the wall. You got various tiers of cyber criminals, and the easiest way to break it down is there's a few really broad groupings. You got script kiddies, bored teenagers, bored people running automated packages trying to do stuff. No real skill involved. Then you've got unstructured cybercrime. They are the ones that are primarily targeting small business. They will lease servers, buy servers, do whatever they need to do, buy an exploit, package an exploit, like an attack on the system, and fire it out against hundreds of thousands of IP addresses. And your IP address is what your network is on to let you talk to the internet, to get your email, to go to the website, stuff like that. And they will throw mud at that wall and see what sticks. And, well, if 1 in 1,000 sticks, that's still 100 people they now get to take advantage of and ransom or extract data or do whatever else they're going to do. Beyond that, you're then crossing into the organized cybercrime, and these organizations are structured like true corporate entities. They have HR teams, recruitment departments, internal dispute resolution processes, KPIs, metrics, bonus schemes. They are proper corporate structures. They have specialists for each line of the cyber attack process. You've got a specialist who can write the phishing emails to get people to click on them, who then gets passed to somebody else once they've gotten in to run an exploit to gain control of the computers. And once they're in, they'll pass it on to a ransomware specialist who then knows how to run the ransomware and move around the environment, and they'll pass on to a ransom negotiator. And it is a full, multi-structure, highly disciplined team focused on crime. And they are very efficient at what they do. Beyond that, you've got the state-sponsored actors and the cyber terrorists, and they play in their own world. And if you're working with defense or high-end finance or R&D and innovation, you might be a target for them. But this comes down to when you're crossing into the structured or organized cybercrime and the cyber state-sponsored actors, cyber terrorist actors, you become a specific target. And I mean that in the sense that when it comes to cybersecurity, you can never keep people out entirely all the time. They will, if they want to get in, they will get in. So you need to have a combination of cybersecurity and cyber resilience. And the cybersecurity is detecting when the bad things are happening, working out where they're coming from, and kicking the bad guy out as quickly as possible with minimal harm to your system and recovering. Cyber resilience is the bad things have happened. How do we get back to normal? Restoring from backups, running your analytics to make sure stuff is gone, restored to its normal state. Running backup tests. You want to be running periodic tests on your backup because the last time you want to actually be testing that is when you actually need it and find it hasn't been working properly for a year. Because at that point, you've just got really, really expensive storage. You've then got the other thing of running crisis responses. So for exercises, I'll run simulations. The reason being is that in a crisis, people don't rise to the occasion. It's not how things work. In those crises, you're running on a fear-driven response, which means that your amygdala is firing off adrenaline and cortisol and all these things, and your brain is not good at doing complex, logical reasoning. So you practice. You essentially run, and for the geeks amongst us, essentially Dungeons and Dragons for businesses. You pick a scenario and you simulate a disaster. A really common one I run for businesses is you walk in the morning and your communications rack in your office has caught fire and the fire brigade has broken down the door to put out the fire. What do you do? And the correct answer is not, what do you tell? Who do you tell? What do you tell? When? Who has authority to contact insurance? At what point do you contact insurance? How do you tell your staff? How are you going to send that email when you haven't got Wi-Fi in your office? Can you do it from your phone? What are all the other things in there? So we talk through and role play out this scenario. So if something bad does happen, you've practiced it. It's not a new and unique thing. You know that there are people to reach out to and documents to look at and parties to reach. And that's where you want to run those types of scenarios. That's part on the resilience side. I love running those. They are so much fun because you get to see these little aha moments when you're running them. I've gone into some where some of the staff have been a little combative. Oh, we don't have to do this. We know what we're doing. And at the end, they're like, oh my God, that was so much fun. We didn't think about that. And that's amazing. Like it's fun. It's one of the things I really enjoy with what I do. But when we're circling back to your original question, most small businesses, if they're going to be hit, they're going to be hit by an unstructured cybercrime or maybe a script kiddie attack. Now, if we look at a scale on, say, 1 to 10, with 10 being military grade stuff and the duck's guts of what's out there, and a 0 being, that's cute, most small businesses in Australia are at probably a 2, maybe a 3. So the bad guys have only got to throw mud at the wall that hits a 3, maybe a 4. So all we have to do is move small business cybersecurity configurations and posture and capability to a 4, maybe into a 5, and congratulations, that mud is going to slide off the wall like it's coated in Teflon. You don't need to worry about it. And a lot of these things aren't complex. And to look at how it can be done, there are specific cybersecurity frameworks that are designed for the SMB one, for the small business. And one of them is the primary one is called the SMB 1001. It is a small business focused one developed in Australia, run by a couple of organizations here, and in the interest of transparency, I have the Diamond certification. I was the first one globally to get it, and I teach other organizations how to do it. I did it because it works. For a small business, it is amazing. I cannot recommend it strongly enough, so long as your organization doesn't need to meet a higher standard. And what I say by that is that you got things like ISO 27001 and SOC 2 and NIST-CFS, the big complex security frameworks. They're based on risk and scope. So you have to look at your business, work out what the gaps are, work out what the threats are, work out what the risks are, analyze those, develop policy, develop process, develop registers, and 5-6 months later, we might be able to pass an audit. It is a long and complex and can sometimes be an expensive process depending upon the size and maturity of the business. Now, if you've got a regulatory requirement or a contractual requirement, sure, do that. If you want to do it to show that you're better, do that as well. I'm not going to stop you. Like I've put it into a 9-person company before. But the SMB 1001 is really structured at the small business. It is prescriptive. So rather than needing a Luke to come through and tell you, do this, do this, do this, do this, depending upon the level you pick between, I think it's 9 and 42 explicit controls. You will do this, you will do this, you will do this, and it's very clear, and it makes you good enough. You don't have to be the best in cybersecurity because that gets expensive quickly. You've just got to do enough so your walls are now coated in Teflon and that mud just slides right off. And it is what it does well. And all the controls are readily available. I've taught multiple managed service providers and other companies how to implement it, how to do it, how to run it. I speak to it at conferences. It is good. Can't recommend it enough. And for small businesses, it's an amazing starting point. If you want to do more, you can do more. If you don't want to, you're good enough.
Luke, I think I remember you saying that was an Australian regular standard and there was a US similar one.
So they've expanded into the US and the UK. So the organisation in Australia that owns the standard and is the regulatory body or governing body across the standard is called DSI, and they have a standards certification partner called Cybersecurity. They make sure that the standard is implemented correctly because you need to have the verification being separate to the owner to maintain a separation of duties. Otherwise, there's a conflict of interest there. So they've got two separate organisations that run it. One makes sure the standard is updated, and they update that every year. And the other one makes sure that when people are doing it, they are implementing it to the standard. Now, the first three levels, bronze, silver, and gold, a director can sign off on that. You don't need to be externally audited. If you want to do the more senior levels, like level 4, level 5, also called platinum and diamond, then they have to be externally audited, and that's organised through Cybersecurity. And you'll bring in one of the audit partners to support with that. Now, again, I've implemented levels at all tiers across my clients, and it works. For the small organizations, I'll help them, I'll write the controls, I'll introduce them to tech partners to do the work, because from an agent's perspective, we don't do hands-on tools, because from what I do being strategy and advisory, if I sell you the product to fix your problem, I feel that's a conflict of interest. If I tell you what your problem is and how to fix it, and I go, hey, here's one I prepared earlier, no. But I'll make introductions to people I trust to do the work. For those level 1, level 2, or bronze, silver, gold, their tech provider or tech partner or consulting partner will support on how to meet the controls, will work with you, or will introduce you to someone on how to implement it. Or even your internal IT team can do that if you've got one. And then you as the director just needs to tick the final box saying, as a director, I attest that this information is true and accurate, and hit next, and you're good to go. And once you've got the silver level, I think it is, you become eligible, you meet the requirements for cybersecurity insurance underwriting. And I would, when I talked about cyber resilience early, I would strongly encourage everybody, if you do not have insurance for cybersecurity, to please speak to your insurance broker. It is the financial backstop and technical backstop to give you a chance to attempt recovery on your business in the event everything is destroyed or ransomed. Well, as an example, Belinda, your organization gets ransomware. How many headcount in your company? Just you? Two people. Okay. That's not going to be too bad. It's still going to be expensive. You're going to need a digital forensic specialist, probably one or two of them. They start at $650 an hour, and you're going to need them for at least 20 hours. Do you have that cash at bank to cover that? Don't have to answer that, but just as an example. And the larger you get, the more expensive that becomes, because you might need an incident manager and other people. Those costs add up. What do you tell your staff? What do you tell your clients? What do you tell the public? What do you do if the press rings and go, hey, we've just seen this? What the cybersecurity insurance does, as part of your policy, it may include componentry like the financial resources to recover, providing technical specialists, providing legal counsel, providing access to PR specialists to draft those communications to go to market. If we want to look at a more extreme example, let's pick a law firm, 100 lawyers. Let's say, for example, a hacker breaks into 3 partners' email accounts. Now, let's assume, I'm going to go off the general averages of what I've seen here. Most of those partners are probably going to have 5,000 to 10,000 messages in their mailbox because they haven't deleted anything since they started. It's always going to be there. Now, the bad guy has downloaded that message box for 3 people. A team of paralegals now need to go through every message sent, every message received, every message deleted to verify if personally identifiable or sensitive information is in there. Then you have to go through the reporting process to the Privacy Commissioner. Then you have to do all these other declarations and recoveries, and you're going to need a team of 20 to 30 paralegals for a week per mailbox. So we're now looking at $650 by 8, by 5, by 20, by the 3 direct or the 3 partners have been compromised. That is not a small number. That is fairly significant. And that is just the discovery cost. That is not the recovery cost. That is just a straight up legal cost to work out what is your liability before you go, how much to get back to normal. Cybersecurity insurance, if it's structured appropriately through your broker, can find you a policy that can provide you the resources, support, to cover that.
Luke, does having in Australia, the SMB 1000 and in the States, North America, whatever does that help with your insurance premiums? Does that
Yes,
make
it does. The premiums, so once you get to the silver level, you automatically qualify for cybersecurity insurance underwriting from their panel of cybersecurity insurance brokers. And there's plenty of insurance brokers. If you want references to other ones, I know 9 or 10 directly. I'm happy to make introductions to anyone who wants them.
Thank you.
On the small business side, you won't see much of a reduction in your policy because it's based upon size and risk. Once you start crossing into the large business and the enterprise space, implementing specific things and doing other things can have a material impact on the cost of your policy, but you're also dealing in 7 and 8 figure values at that point, not $1,000 or $600 or whatever else it might be for a small or a micro business. You won't see much of a reduction by putting it in, but they will actually offer you coverage as opposed to going, sorry, you haven't got the bare minimum. What's the bare minimum? Oh, sorry, we can't tell you that because they're not allowed to. Most of them can't. They'll go use SMB 1001 or speak to a cyber advisor or speak to your MSP. And that's where things like SMB 1001 Silver are fantastic because from memory, I think it's 14 or 16 controls. And they're not hard, like Control 1. Have a technical support specialist to work with your business. They don't have to be an employee. You can have them on contract or bring them on part-time or get a managed service provider to help you in a break-fix capacity. Have a firewall. Have backups. Use MFA. It's really 101 level stuff, and that's where it's really good because the stuff I recommend for my enterprise clients is very different to what I recommend for my SMB clients. Because if you try and shoehorn enterprise grade stuff into a small business, you break them. It has to be contextualized to the size and risk of the business. If you try to put in banking rate stuff to a florist or a plumber, they're going to go bankrupt. There's no point. It's not appropriate for them to run that level of stuff. So the SMB is scaled to be appropriate.
So with the SMB businesses here or overseas, what are some of the typical breaches that you see?
Yep. Okay. So everyone's heard of ransomware and everyone's terrified of ransomware. And to a certain extent, it's not a bad thing to be scared of, but it only accounts for 6% of all compromises. But it's the one that gets all the press because it's the most destructive. When it detonates, which is like when it goes, we call it getting popped or it detonates, and it's all very military parlance and has blast radiuses and things like that. It cripples a business, even potentially destroys them. Because, okay, your computer's hard drive is encrypted, it's locked up, you can't get access to it. Cool. You pay the ransom. The bad guys give you a decryption key to unlock the ransomware. That key doesn't work for some reason. What level of tech support are you going to get from the bad guys to make it work? They've already got the money.
Do they have help desks, Luke?
They've got everything else.
They do for the people they sell the exploit kit to. So there's actually licensing agreements across these things. So if someone's written a really good ransomware product, they will license that to other cybercrime gangs for a clip of the ticket. I love this stuff. It's fascinating to learn about for me. But so that's ransomware. Ransomware only accounts for 6% of all detonation or all events that occur in Australia. I can't speak for the rest of globally.
Do they normally go for the bigger guys though, ransomware, or do they play in the small space too?
They hit anywhere. Now, so if they're going against the big guys, they will actively target. But generally speaking, the larger the organization, the more likely they are to be able to recover because they have insurance, they have backups, they have things like application control and teams of people like me to do stuff and prevent that stuff from happening. Whereas a small business, they've got Tim, who they ring once a month when their Outlook plays up.
So basically the bad guys just cast a big net and go fishing.
It's spot on, yeah. They're basically firing a shotgun on the forest and hoping to hit a leaf. And a leaf is a small business. Oh, look at that. We got 20. They're taking a spray and pray approach of who they can harm.
So ransomware is 6%. So what else are the typical?
The big ones, the ones that account for most of it are email-based attacks. They account for more than 65% of all the attacks that occur. And the reason that's the case is who wants to turn off their email and not use email and go back to writing letters on a typewriter using snail mail? Yeah, not going to happen. So you have an always open, always on, always active ingress into an organization. So that's why email is the primary target. They can throw mud at the wall against the website, against the firewall, against accounts and against identities, but email's right there and it's open and we know they look at it. So they'll send hostile links, they'll send hostile attachments, and that's where you need to have good email security, both inbound and outbound. From an inbound perspective, you need to be doing things what's called like link detonation, which is where, I said military parlance everywhere. It takes me back. What link detonation is, they will, like companies like Microsoft and other email security providers, you have to have licenses for this, mind you. They will have a bot or an AI agent run that link in what's called a sandbox to see what happens. Does it try to do something nasty or naughty? And if it does that, then it kills it. It goes, no, not going to pass that through. Now, there are ways to bypass that. It takes a little bit more skill, but it does happen. But the whole thing, a lot of it comes down to nowadays what's called social engineering, which is the polite way of saying con. They're trying to convince someone to click on a link to open a document to give away data they're not supposed to do or not supposed to give away, which provides the bad guy a way in. Now, I've been in organizations where one of the staff has walked up to me while I've been working on an ISO 27001 implementation and gone, hey, Luke, you work in IT? And it's like, not really. I'm the cyber consultant, but what can I do for you? Oh, my Outlook's playing up. Okay, I'll have a look. At least that way we can give the right information to the service desk to help you. Have a look, and we go over there and we see emails going from read to unread down her screen. It's like, does anyone else have access? Is it a shared mailbox or is it, oh, it's mine? Have you given away your password recently? Oh, yeah, someone saying they're from IT said they needed my password and then asked me to read out my MFA code on my phone. Okay, we're now under attack. I need to go fix this. So that person didn't know they weren't supposed to do that. So guess what I spent the next week doing? Educating the whole business on what not to do. And that's what social engineering is. Someone rang up saying, g'day, it's Bob from IT. I need you to do this for me. Can you go to this website and run this bit of software? And people will do it.
With AI, they can have Bob's voice. Hey, it's Bob, and it really is Bob. It sounds like Bob.
There was an attack in Hong Kong about a year and a half ago on a company called, I won't name them in case I get it wrong, but they lost 200 million Hong Kong, which is about 32 million Australian. The finance manager in Hong Kong was in a Teams call with the CFO based in London, and there was one other person in the call, and he was given instructions to transfer 200 million Hong Kong between varying accounts, and he went and did that. He was the only human on the call. The other humans were deepfake AI and deepfake voice, impersonating the CFO based on conference and presentation footage. So they're able to recreate the CFO digitally in an online chat. Now, the fact that they did that indicates a overall failure in governance because you're transferring $200 million on a verbal instruction. Okay, can I get that in writing, please? Who's the second party that needs to sign off on releasing that volume of funds?
The second AI bot.
The thing is, if they're at the point where they are inserting fake or AI'd humans into a Teams chat, your organization is severely compromised, massively compromised. But that's where you need the other compensating controls in place to mitigate the harm, limit the blast radius. Oh, look, another military tab. You want to minimize the harm by, okay, you want to transfer more than $50,000? A director needs to co-sign that. You want to transfer more than $1 million out of an account? We need 3 parties to sign off on that within a minute. Whatever that might be, you have those additional controls to limit the harm. Like one of the controls I put into organizations to limit fraud, because I've picked up in a couple of organizations ghost employees set up by rogue payroll officers. I run some checks to work out this versus this and why is there some discrepancies. I go, look, you need to mandate having anyone involved in payroll and finance to have a mandatory 2-week period off from the business in any given calendar year at a minimum. And while they're away, their accounts are disabled and their phones are forwarded. 2 weeks is normally enough to pick up any fraud in an organization due to they're not there to keep it on the rails and keep it secret from other people. And the staff are made aware, hey, well, this person's away. If they ring through for something, you pass it through to me or you pass it through to the CFO, whoever else it might be. But that gives you sufficient time to run your audits, run your checks, and have stuff go, what do you mean this person doesn't exist as a person or this supplier doesn't exist? So it's one of the things you got to factor in, like, because you're looking at insider threat. 99.9% of your staff want to do the right thing, but there will be some who want to be naughty.
If an email comes through with a link, but you don't click on it, you just send it to spam or whatever, is that good enough?
That's fine.
It's just activating the link.
Yes, clicking on the link, running the attachment. So there is specific training you can do. So what you can do is you can hover over the link and that will tell you where it goes, but you need to be taught how to read that because it can get fairly convoluted fairly quickly. So you need to know this symbol means that, which means I need to read this part, then this part, then this part, so you can see where it lands. Like someone sent me the other week and it was good. I was like, I don't use that account to send mail. Why are they telling me it's doing this? Okay, let's put that into a safe environment. Let's look at some things there. 'Cause I've got dedicated laptops that if they get ransomware or destroyed, I don't care. They don't talk to anything. They can't talk to anything. And there's no hard drive in them. They run entirely off a USB key. So I don't care. Run it? Oh, yeah, that's some bad stuff. Okay, glad I did that. But don't do that on yourself, please. Please don't.
So ransomware 6%, email I think you said 60%, did you?
Email, business email, BEC. So that can be a combination. So that is something where they're trying to compromise your email either for your credentials or to get you to click on a link or to run an attachment. Anything around screwing around with your email system accounts for about 60%. Of the remainder, invoice fraud is a really common one as well. So when it comes to invoice fraud, if someone says, please update our payment details, go to your CRM, go to your finance system, go to Google, look up their phone number, ring that, and ask them to read the number back to you. Do not provide them the number, because if you give the number and you're speaking to the attacker, oh no, you need to tell me. We got multiple. Tell me the account. This is the invoice number, and confirm that. So invoice frauds are really common. Standard viruses and other malware and worms is another one that comes through a bit. They account for the rest. And then you've also got other things called 0 days, which account for like less than 1%. A 0 day is an attack on a system for which a protection does not yet exist. That's why they're called 0 day. Nobody knows about them yet. Now, small business is not going to get hit by them because they're worth about at least $250,000 a pop. They are saved up and used against high-profile targets. The thing is, once they go public and there's a patch and a remediation for them, the bad guys know about them. They're not worth $250,000 anymore. They're now worth next to zero. Now, they will then take those ones, package them up into an attack, and then when I said the bad guys will send an attack out against 100,000 addresses, that's what they'll do. This one got patched last week. No worries. Let's hit all the companies that haven't patched their servers, haven't patched their computers, haven't patched their firewalls. And that's what they'll do. And let's see what gets lucky. You go back, call it 2010, 2011, the time between the releasing of a patch and a bad guy using it to attack a company used to be measured about 7 to 8 days. It's now measured in under 2 hours. When the vulnerability is uncovered or when the vulnerability is patched, they will reverse engineer what the patch does. So undo, like this is what we fix, and they fix it, and we use that to attack companies that are still testing the patch or haven't yet released it, which is mean I've talked about compensating controls. That's why you need the additional things to go, if one bad thing happens, that's all right, we'll catch it here. We'll pick your car as an example. To prevent you being seriously injured in an accident, you have brakes, you have airbags, you have seat belts, you have crumple zones, you have all of these things, and they are compensating controls. If one thing fails, that's bad. It's not critical. 2 things fail. Okay, we've got a bit of a problem. If all 4 things fail simultaneously, then you've got a big problem, in which case you're most likely going to be seriously injured. The same thing applies in cybersecurity. You've got layers and layers and layers. It's often referred to as like the onion defense.
Last time we spoke, you gave a really good agenda, I guess, of 60% or 70% of what people could do that's not hard that would keep them safe. Would you mind running through that?
So use a password manager. First thing, get yourself a password manager. Personally, I use a product called NordPass. You can use OnePass, Keeper, LastPass. They're all good. Speak if you haven't got a tech partner or tech provider to work with. If you've got one, speak to them. They'll be able to license you one and support you on one. Otherwise, you can buy one online. Just make sure you get a reputable brand. As I said, NordPass, OnePass, Keeper. Once you've got that password manager, use different passwords for every single site that you use. The human brain is terrible at remembering 20 different passwords that are 14 characters long with uppercase, lowercase, number, and special character. Don't try. It's pointless. Use a password manager. It can do that for you. I have in excess of 100 passwords in my password manager, and they are all 16 characters at a minimum. I have some up to 128 characters. So the reason why that works is a computer, when it's trying to crack the password, this thing called a brute force attack, they don't care how complex the password is. If complexity has a factor in the time, but length matters more. And that's to do with what's referred to as entropy and crossing into really complex math stuff. And I'll just skip over that bit.
So the number of characters in the password
matters more. Yeah. If you use a common word, which let's call it, say, the 2016, that's going to be really easy to break because it's 9 characters, 10 characters, and it's a common word and a common number. But if you have uppercase A, lowercase r, $sign, underscore, P, capital P, whatever, that will make it more complex because it has to run through every possible permutation. And I think there's roughly, call it 110-ish permutations on your keyboard before you look at some other special things you can do, but that's outside the scope of this. That has to run through that for every single permutation on length. It has to do all of those, and that takes time. As you start getting more and more characters, that takes longer and longer. We start crossing from an 8-character password, regardless of how complex it is now broken instantly. A 9-character password will generally be broken in under 9 seconds to 16 seconds on average. But But when you start cracking into 12, 14, and 16 character passwords, we're now measuring decades, centuries, and millennia.
So you'd recommend 12, would you?
At least 12.
Okay, let's go 14.
Yeah, 14. Yep. Go 14 and you're good. Now, admittedly, when we start talking, everyone's heard about quantum computing and stuff like that. That will change the game again. But that is a different problem for a different time because we haven't got good answers in that space yet. And let's be honest.
So we just keep getting longer.
What they'll move towards is different methods of authentication. So the next thing beyond passwords is called passphrases. So if I say the phrase, purple giraffe making cheese 1280. Now, you're now picturing a purple giraffe making cheese in your mind's eye, which is why language is awesome. But that's a 28-ish character password. Now, that is also really annoying to type in every morning. That will drive you mental, which is why you've got things with Windows called Windows Hello. You can use a thumbprint or a PIN code. Those, or a facial unlock, the same way you do for your phone. Now, those are tied to that specific computer. You can't walk up to any computer in your organization and do that. It won't work. You have to use your password to log on to a new computer. The PIN code is safe, being, say, a 6-digit PIN, because on the computer there's a thing called a trusted platform module, which has what's called anti-hammer. You get the PIN code wrong 3 times, it is 5 seconds until the next one. Next time you get it wrong, 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and it gets longer and longer and longer until the sun will burn out sooner than what you will run out of guesses.
It happens often with my iPhone with my 3-year-old.
Yeah, precisely. Whereas with mine, I've got mine configured that if the incorrect code is put in, I think it's more than 4 times, it wipes itself. But I also work in a very secure design because I have to be.
So the password manager, length the password.
Length the password because that way it makes it more resistant. And you can then start doing other things like the thumbprint to make it secure for you. Different passwords for every website or service that you use. Don't use the common password everywhere because if they crack that password or guess that password, they will then go to your Netflix, your Amazon, your Combank, whatever, to see if it gets in. That's what they'll try and do. So do that. Update your computer. When your computer says, I have updates ready to apply, let it. Don't make it wait a month. It's applying updates because there are software vulnerabilities that the bad guys are throwing mud at the wall to make it stick. Do that. Have your computer update itself. Make sure updates are turned on. If you can, to make sure that your Windows firewall on your laptop is turned on or you're running a firewall in your office. What that does is that screens the traffic coming and going from the business or coming into the business. It can also do outbound if you want it to. That makes sure that what's coming in is only what's been requested and what's approved. Most people, if they're working from home, they're running the device that Telstra gave them or Optus gave them or Starlink gave them. That's not necessarily a firewall, that's a router. That tells data where to find you. I didn't mention stopping anything. You also want to, so everyone also has what's called, so everyone knows the term antivirus. That is a bit of an outdated technology nowadays. The technology you want to be looking at is one called EDR or Endpoint Detection Remediation or Endpoint Detection Recovery, depending on who you're speaking to. So antivirus works like your immune system. If something bad, it's been told what something bad looks like, it finds it, it recognizes it, it kills it, or quarantines and kills it. That's great. There's 12,000 new pieces of hostile software being written every day. So it's not that good of an immune system, might be slightly compromised. What the EDR does, it looks at the behavior of the system and goes, is this software trying to do something that is unusual? Is that how this type of software should be doing? Is this the sort of thing this person normally does? Do they normally go and encrypt a heap of files rapidly or delete a lot of files or move a lot of files or try to send these files off to a Dropbox location? No, okay, I'm going to kill it. And that's another good thing you can do. Authentication. Yes, I know you don't like it. And I'm going to be harsh here. Suck it up, princess.
It wasn't me, by the way. He's not calling me
I think you're talking
princess.
to me, BK. I think you're talking to me.
It is one of the most effective things you can do to minimize harm because what it's doing is identity factor is who you are, what you know, what you have. Your username, typically your email address, is who you are. What you know is a password. Guess what the weakest factor in identity is? Passwords. So what the multi-factor does is it goes, is it this person who has something they have, which could be a smartphone authentication app, it could be a fingerprint, it could be a face scan, it could be a something else, what's called a FIDO key or a YubiKey that lets you go, hey, this proves I am who I say I am. It validates the identity. And that is one of the things that has the biggest impact. Now, if you only have the option of email and SMS, sure, do that. But there are ways to break that are not entirely complex. You are better off using like a Microsoft Authenticator or Google Authenticator. If you've got no other choice but to use SMS, use SMS. It's better than not having it. But I also wouldn't be relying on it for super critical systems because it's breakable. And if we want to talk about that, it's a whole other hour-long conversation.
So that's 5 things there. Is that it, or is there anything else, Luke?
No, if you want to cross into some slightly more techie things, you can do what's called network segmentation. So if you've got multiple devices on your network, speak to a tech provider and have what's called virtual LANs set up. So that means you've got different devices on different networks. One, let's say the printer gets compromised, it can't infect the server or it can't infect whatever else. There's also backups. Backups are critical. Cannot stress that enough. Most people think, I've got Office 365. It's backed up. No, it's not. It's replicated. That is different to backup. What replication means is that in the event the data is corrupted or destroyed, that is replicated. It's not backed up. So if you've got someone malicious or data is removed or data is damaged, then good luck. If you're running your Office 365 via, say, GoDaddy, because it's cheap, you've only got 7 days of logs to tell what happened. Now, normally you need to go back, ideally at least 90 days to work out when did they actually get in and what have they touched. If you've only got 7 days, you're going to have a very hard time. But the backups of your Office 365 system and your Xero, like Xero or MyOp, how are you backing that up? Fairly certain that's critical to most businesses and it's not backed up.
What percentage of Xero users do you reckon are actually backing up?
I'd say less than 1%. Less than 1%. For Office 365, I know the global stat recently was only...
I did have mine backed up, and I was like, what am I doing this for? And then I backed it up, and I think I'll have to do it again. You've convinced me. I thought, what am I paying for that for? That subscription can go, that one can go, that one can go.
Yeah. It's a few years old now, but the old stat from about 2017, I think it was, 84% of companies globally don't back up their Office 365. So your Teams, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, your Outlook, it's not backed up unless you're paying to have it back up.
Do you have any, this might not be a question for you, Luke, but if you're thinking about backing it up, are there any sort of preferred, like smarter methods?
Yeah, there's plenty of products out there that can do it. ArcServe does it, Cove does it. It's one of those things, if you've got a technical partner or colleague, like a tech team working like a managed service provider, speak to them because they'll have recommended tools. If you don't have one, drop me an email. I'll make introductions. Like I work with about 60 or 70 across the country. I work with a few in the UK and the US as well. So if you need an introduction, I'm happy to do it because reduce harm. So you've got backups across things. That's another important one. Cybersecurity insurance we've talked about. Go and take out cybersecurity insurance. Align to a framework. So we've talked about SMB 1001. Go and start it. If you want help doing it, I'm happy to help. I'm happy to point you in the direction of other people who can help you. If you've got an internal IT team that wants some guidance, happy to do that. Like I've got 2 ebooks or an ebook on my website of how to do it because people need to know how to do this. Yes, it's aimed at technical people. It is not aimed at the layperson because some of the stuff in there is quite technical. And the first requirement in all levels of the standard is engage a technical specialist.
Something else that you put us onto last time, which is amazing, which is really practical and easy, is cyber wardens. And I know it's here in Australia, but if you're in the States or Canada or New Zealand, or it would be just as good to watch. It doesn't seem to me like it's country specific. It's just information.
No, it's generic. Yeah. So it is a really good starting point for cybersecurity awareness training. When I'm working with organizations and we know that budgets are a concern, if you can only afford to do one thing, do training. It will have the largest impact on your organization.
I'll pop that link into Cyber Wardens, so if anyone's interested.
So start with Cyber Wardens if you want to do some more advanced training. And Cyber Wardens is the basics. It is teaching, and I say this with affection, it's teaching you to not be stupid. It's not teaching you how to be smart. And there's that distinction, like it's going, cool, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this.
It's a good start.
Exactly. Like don't stick your finger in a PowerPoint. Cool.
Luke, one thing I wanted to come back to, we were talking about this before we jumped on, and I was telling you how a friend of mine, I was saying, well, why haven't you got a password manager? And he said, well, if the person gets my LastPass or NordPass password, then they've got all my passwords. And I said, let's leave that for the call and answer it on that. So what was your...
So the reason why that, I understand their perspective, but it's coming from an incorrect position or perspective. So yes, if the bad guy gets one password, yes, he could potentially get it. But for him to get that, he needs, I'll use my Nord account as an example. They need to know my Nord account master password. They need to know my password manager master password. And they need access to 2 different MFA codes on my phone. So if they can get that, yeah, I deserve to be compromised.
Hat tip to them.
Yes, spot on. They have done some very good work. Now, they are stored in an encrypted format that if they can break that, then there are going to be several spy agencies who want to give them jobs. But the level of skill to do that is very, very high. Now, if we look at it from a threat reduction perspective, and I'll touch on one of the things, Don't save your passwords in your browser. It is not secure, both from a personal and a professional perspective. Because if you've saved your work password in, like you've logged into Chrome and you've saved your passwords into Chrome for your company's finance system, your company's CRM. We've also logged into Chrome at home, which means that your company passwords are now on your home computer. How much protection is on your home computer compared to your company computer?
So you're saying when it comes up and it says save to computer, you say no.
Do not save it to the computer. Do not save it to the browser. Get a password manager.
So if you have, then you go into Chrome and delete them all.
Delete them all, yes. I would strongly encourage that. There are
just asking for a friend.
For a friend. Okay.
There are specific classes of malware called info stealers that target them. So they'll get onto a computer and they'll rip out the password cache.
They also cause a lot of confusion because I might have had some saved on my computer and I use LastPass and I was having all sorts of problems with the two fighting with each other.
Yeah.
It takes a little bit of work to set them up. You want to pick one and stick with one. When it comes to the training, like if you want to do more advanced training, there are a multitude of providers who that's something I do. There's a guy here in Brisbane called Mike, runs a company called Psyche. He does amazing work. There's Katrina over in WA for CAIT. Her work is amazing as well. She's actually doing a PhD on the topic. There are plenty of skilled people who can provide you in-depth training on what to do and what not to do to prevent harm, because education is one of the best things you can do to minimize the risk to a person or an organization.
Yeah, and I think listening to this conversation, we could all just, melt and just go, oh my God, this is all too much. But I love your kind of framework there about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so things like password manager, length of password, update your computer, get your firewall turned on, use MFA, backups and insurance, and educate yourself. I mean, that's not out of reach for any of us. So and it sounds like if we're doing that, we're 90% ahead of what everybody else is doing.
If you're doing those 7 or 8 things there, you've done 80% of the SMB 1001 already.
Okay.
You're already 80 to 90% of the way there. You might have to do 1 or 2 other little things that might not apply to your business if you're not running servers. If you're running 100% software as a service in the cloud, then congratulations, you're probably pretty close to 100% done. But you're in a good position if you're doing that.
And I guess it's a little bit like AI. Like Andrew and I talk a lot about AI in the show and interview a lot of guests that are AI and tech experts. And it's changing so quickly. We've got to be in the conversation and we've got to be trying things and learning and understanding it. And cybersecurity is the same. And obviously they're using a lot of AI in cybersecurity as well. And if we're not keeping up, there's going to be a big jump.
Big gap.
Yeah, well, there are AI risks as well that relate to cybersecurity. So if you're using an AI product, where is that data going? I've had one organization, a CEO, put 6 applicants' CVs into ChatGPT public mode. That's a breach of the Privacy Act because their personally identifiable information is now loaded into the training data set stored offshore in America. They didn't give consent to that. That's a breach. Maybe a breach. I'm not a lawyer.
A couple of meeting recorders have been in a bit of hot water for breach of where that data goes. I think there was a lawsuit filed last year against them because they couldn't say this is going to stop here. It actually was going, and it was very difficult to switch that off at the user level.
Well, there's a class action now with a lot of creatives in AI. I think it's is it ChatGPT or others where they've just like these wonderful artists and like musicians and authors and now are having all of their information, all of their stuff ripped off. And then like going, well, if humans can't do it, if there's copyright preventing you, it should be applicable to you as well. So who knows where that'll land.
I love AI and what it offers, but at the same time, I don't want an AI to replace an artist. I want an AI to fold my laundry for me, do my dishes, mow my lawn, clean my house. It's like, I don't want, here's a new piece of art. No, I want a human to do that. I want AI to remove the mundanity, the things that, look, another basket of laundry that hasn't been folded in 3 months.
I think there'll be 2 things. I think there'll be pushback will be one, like these guys are doing now, which is great. And we have to have class actions and things to keep them honest. And then the second thing is, I know this is almost a bit naive, but I think at some level, a lot of the time I think subconsciously you can just feel if something's AI, and you might argue and say, yeah, Belinda, it's going to get so good that we won't. And who knows, that's all to be seen. But there's just that little human element that I can't describe it, but at the moment,
often
at least,
imperfection is missing in the AI. So your skin tones are perfect. There's no lines, and it's only, I think, in the last couple of weeks that the models have been upgraded to form the skin tones 100%.
Yeah, I know guys who are using custom LLMs to insert a grammatical or typo into the system. No one's going to care if you misplace a comma, unless it's a contract, of course.
Yeah, and it's to do with a dollar number, right? You know, the comma's quite important.
I've been noticing lately like if I've emailed something and an email's come back to me from people that I know, and I look at it and it's always so, oh, Belinda, that's such a good question. And I'm like, you never would have said that. Like, it's just like, and then you got to get through all the like praise till you get to the point, and it's like, that's what you would have said. It's kind of funny. Kind of funny.
We digress. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, Andrew, anything you would like else?
Yeah, I was just gonna maybe summarize. If you walked into a small to medium recruitment agency today, what would you say is the top 3 things you can do to bridge that gap? I know we've covered a couple of them, but maybe in summary, by severity of risk.
If we're looking, say, a 10-seat organization, just walk into there. First thing I do is, 1, check, do you have backups? Because if you don't have an option to recover and something happens, cool, that's a business extinction level event. That'd be the first one. Second one, multi-factor authentication. Make sure that's turned on, because that's one of the strongest things to prevent something going wrong in the first place. And then as the third one, I would probably check to make sure that the devices are being kept up to date. If I could only do 3 things, that's going to have the largest impact, because you're going to be removing the software vulnerabilities, making sure they're updated, making sure that multi-factor is turned on to make it harder for the bad guy, and make sure they can come back if things go bad.
Yeah. And 2 out of those 3 that you've just mentioned are free, aren't they, Luke? The backup might cost you a small fraction of the total cost of, probably less than you spend on a team lunch, right, a month.
Oh, exactly. It's less than a Friday night out. A lot of the stuff isn't that advanced to implement. Like, so many organizations, like every time I see a major breach in the press, yes, it's generally related to a governance failure, but a lot of it comes down to they're not doing the basics correctly. Now, I don't want that to sound condescending or actually simple, because in a 10-person organization, the basics are simple. Like, the basics are straightforward. You have 10 computers, 5 different pieces of software, and 10 people in one location. You don't have 100 staff. You have 2 locations. Everyone has 1.5 devices. You've got 30 different pieces of software in different geographies. Okay, how do you know your state? Like, your running state, what do you have? What's it running with? You're now running 1,000 people and 1,000 computers. So the basics are still the same. Like, the 2 primary rules of cybersecurity that everything comes back to: if the bad guy has physical access, you have lost. So physical security matters as much as cybersecurity. And you need to know what you're protecting. If you don't know what you're protecting, you can't protect it. And that creates an unlocked back door for the bad guy to get in. There was an attack in the US on the Colonial Pipeline system a few years ago, where the bad guys got in through a VPN system that hadn't been turned off, but didn't have multi-factor authentication turned on. That was it. So you might remember the news articles of Americans loading plastic bags of petrol into their boot and things like that, because they couldn't get petrol.
I remember that.
But they got in because someone didn't know that device had to be turned off. Didn't know they still had it. Bad guy found it.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I'm glad there's some really actionable things for teams to do straight off the bat. And then probably a tip would be to have a look at that SMB 1001. And even looking at that document, I was just scanning it whilst we've been chatting, you get some really good ideas around how you can start.
I'm always happy to have a chat. Like, if someone wants to be pointed in the right direction, I'm happy to do that, because reduce harm.
Yeah. So is your network mostly here in Australia, Luke, or do you got some connections in North America as well? I think you mentioned you did have.
I've got some in North America, I've got a few in Canada, I've got a couple in the UK, I've got quite a few in New Zealand.
I just don't want our American and Canadian friends and New Zealanders to feel left out, and I just remembered from before. So it's just as valid. I know a guy. I'm not surprised. Oh gosh, it's no surprise that all these TV stations are chasing you down. You're a font of cyber knowledge.
Thank you.
Anything else that you would like to just cover off before we sign off, Luke? I mean, that's been amazing what you've said. It's insightful.
So from my side, like, what Aegis does with our clients is, like, as you said at the start, we're a fractional CISO. So that means we work with boards and senior leaders and C-suites to help design, structure, strategize the cybersecurity strategy and approach for the organization. Smallest firm I've worked with was a 1-person financial services firm. That was on an SMB engagement. The largest one I've worked with was a 19,000-seat multinational mining conglomerate, and that was on a privacy impact assessment. But I've worked across the entire spectrum, and I know how to tailor the responses and what's appropriate for the organization and the right size. So we work on the strategy, the guidance, and the support and the advice. And the big call to action that I know that makes my firm different to a lot of the other firms is that we don't sell the products, be it the hardware, the software, or the implementation services. We've taken that approach so there's no conflict of interest in our advice. Follow my advice, don't follow my advice, that's your choice. But it's not, hey, you've got a problem, here's something I prepared earlier. It's, you have a problem, this is how you fix it. Here are 3 people or 3 organizations who can fix that problem for you. Would you like an introduction? And if they want help managing it, I'll do that. Putting in ISO 27000 on the SOC 2, I love doing that stuff. Like I've become the guy who likes doing the paperwork. So I'm good with that. I enjoy it. But yeah, it's the stuff that I do, I love doing. And I specifically target the SMB market because everything in my world is generally aimed at the enterprise and government layer. But they have budgets and it takes a bit more work and a bit more structure or background to understand how to make it work for an SMB because they have tighter budgets, different requirements, and they don't have a cast of thousands to keep the lights on. They've got 10 people, 20 people, that's it.
Amazing. And I was really shocked when you were talking last time, I think you mentioned this time, is that, SMBs are an increasing target because they're so easy to get into. And I think anyone who's thinking, I'm small, they won't worry with me, that's a big wake-up call. And so, Luke, what's the best way that people can contact you?
LinkedIn. I'm highly active on LinkedIn all the time. You can always hit me up there. Can also be reached at lirwin@aegiscyber.com.au. There's also Aegis Cyber website. I've actually got a live chat on there. It's actually not a bot, it's a human. They can reach out to me anyway there, and I'm always happy to have a chat and at least point them in the right direction and just, again, reduce harm, make sure that they're doing something because ASIC and the regulators don't like it if you do nothing because you have to pass the reasonable person test and doing nothing is not reasonable.
Well, that's a good point, isn't it? Like if you end up like this gentleman who'd put the CVs on that was a silly human mistake, but there can be cyber mistakes that if they deem that you haven't taken reasonable care, then apart from the cyber attack, there's you being stomped on by the authorities that don't feel like that you're being responsible.
What's that going to do to your reputation? Who's going to want to work with you after this happens? Most small businesses, when they're compromised, are generally out of business within 8 months if they don't have appropriate remediation and recovery strategies in place.
Yeah, that's frightening, isn't it? It's not like business isn't hard enough already, isn't it? But I guess to end on a positive note there, like Luke, you've given us some really smart, practical advice there where we can implement and keep ourselves safe. And I think all this sort of bad stuff's good to know and it's kind of fascinating. But if we can just keep it real and keep those things that you mentioned there before top of mind, then we're going to be pretty much
good. Exactly. Yeah, it's not an insurmountable mountain.
A manageable mountain. Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you so much for hopping along again, and we'll pop all your details in so people can reach out. Please, if you haven't looked at your risk around cybersecurity, either do that or reach out to some professionals and make sure that you're covered, because it's easy to put these things, your head in the sand and think it won't happen to me, but what if it does?
One of the things I'll call out is that IT is not cyber. Cyber is not IT. They are 2 distinct separate fields.
Did I say IT?
Just because you've got no. Oh, no, you said cyber. Just wanted to call out the normal response is, I've got an IT person for that. It's like IT isn't cyber. You don't speak to your GP for a toothache.
Okay, good distinction. Thank you.
A lot of IT guys can do some good cyber stuff. You want to make sure you're dealing with somebody who actually understands the risk and how to address them. And there are some very good IT guys, but IT and cyber are different.
Yeah, okay. Cousins, but not brothers.
Cousins, not yeah.
Or something. Well, on that note, thanks so much, Luke. It's been great having you. Always good to see you, Rogie.
Thank you for your time today, Luke. It's been amazing. Alrighty. Good to see you, BK.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode of The Tech Savvy Recruiter. If you'd like to stay up to date with the latest recruitment trends and insights, make sure that you remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Also, if you'd like to speak to Andrew about turning your tech stack into your secret weapon, or myself around creating an agency that delivers you more money, more meaning, and more freedom, we'd absolutely love to chat. Reach out to us on LinkedIn, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for your support.